I'm assuming that it will be a much better report card than last semester's.
Oh, I'm assuming the same thing.
By 1985, every Thursday night in America belonged to one show. It had rescued a failing network, resurrected a dying genre, and turned a comedian with 3 failed television attempts into the most powerful figure in primetime. For 5 straight years, it was the #1 show on television, a record no sitcom had ever achieved before, and none has matched since. Then the cracks appeared. Then the audience moved. Then something else entirely came along and finished what the ratings decline had started.
Or blowing up a car or a building, they just stood there cursing. The foulest mouths I've ever heard.
Yeah.
This is the story of how The Cosby Show, 1984, the 80s sitcom giant, fell apart. Part 1. What NBC and America had in 1984. To understand how far The Cosby Show fell, you have to first understand how high it stood. The show premiered on NBC on September 20th, 1984, slotted against Magnum P. Wine on CBS, and almost every serious observer in the industry predicted it would lose. NBC had finished 3rd in the primetime ratings for 3 consecutive seasons. The network was demoralized and desperate. Its entertainment president, Brandon Tartikoff, was under pressure from affiliates and executives to reverse the slide. And Bill Cosby, whatever his personal popularity, had already seen 3 television vehicles fail. The Bill Cosby Show in 1969.
I understand from an inside source that Denise has a new boyfriend.
I'm not talking.
The New Bill Cosby Show in 1972, and Cos in 1976. The industry consensus was that he was not a television leading man. What changed the calculation was not optimism. It was the specific vision that Cosby brought to producers Marcy Carsey and Tom Werner. The show would not use a laugh track. It would be filmed before a live studio audience, which meant the comedy had to genuinely earn its laughs every time. It would draw directly from Cosby's stand-up material about family life and parenting, material he had been performing for 2 decades. And it would place a black family in an upper-middle-class Brooklyn brownstone without treating that economic position as a curiosity or a comic premise.
Every meal has been an adventure.
And tonight, I want you to get ready to visit the island of...
Cliff Huxtable was an obstetrician. His wife Claire was an attorney. Their 5 children were complicated, funny, and loved. That was the show. A BC passed on it before NBC picked it up, which is a fact that the ABC executives of that era spent years explaining. The first season finished 3rd in the Nielsen ratings with a household rating of 24.2, strong enough to be remarkable, not yet #1. The second season, which began September the 26th, 1985, hit a household rating of 33.7. The show moved to #1, and it stayed there. Season 3, Season 4, Season 5, all at the top of the Nielsen chart.
Dad, when I wear this on my date with Christine, oh, she is gonna die.
The only other American sitcom to hold the #1 position for 5 consecutive seasons was All in the Family, which did it during the first half of the 1970s. The Cosby Show matched that record and gave NBC something it had not experienced in years, the confidence of a franchise. Tartikoff later said it was the most important programming decision of his tenure. Without it, he believed, NBC might not have survived its early 1980s collapse in anything like the form that it eventually held. The Thursday night schedule that the show anchored became the most powerful programming block in the history of American broadcast television. In that 1984 to 85 season, The Cosby Show sat at 8 p.m., followed by Family Ties at 8:30, Cheers at 9, and Night Court at 9:30. All 4 shows finished in the Nielsen Top 20 that year.
I came in here and I accidentally knocked Theo's book off the table.
Yeah.
And found this.
The following season, they finished 1st, 2nd, 5th, and 11th respectively. At the end of the 1986 to 87 season, NBC comedies made up 4 of the top 5 shows on all of American television. Tartikoff later said, "The Cosby Show was the single most important programming decision of his tenure. That without it, the network might not have survived its early 1980s crisis in anything like the form it eventually held. The financial numbers were extraordinary. The show generated $2.5 billion in total television revenue over its lifetime, $1 billion from advertising during its original run, and $1.5 billion from syndication. It funded NBC's recovery and gave Carsey Werner
Our ball on their 2-yard line, and who did they go to?
Toby Wilson.
the independent production company behind it, the financial foundation to develop Roseanne, Third Rock from the Sun, and other projects that sustained the company for the following 2 decades. TV Guide called it TV's biggest hit in the 1980s and credited it with almost single-handedly reviving both the sitcom genre and NBC's ratings fortunes. And across those early seasons, the writing was genuinely good. The show drew on a deep bench of writers, many of whom would go on to enormous careers elsewhere. Matt Williams, who developed Roseanne, worked on The Cosby Show. Carmen Finestra, who later co-created Home Improvement, came from The Cosby Show's writer's room. The quality wasn't accidental. The show worked because the writing worked.
So I have to take it, don't I?
A big man would. If a bigger man was standing next to him.
And the writing worked because the people doing it were talented, and the format they were given demanded genuine craft. Part 2. The architecture of the show and its limits. From the beginning, The Cosby Show was built around a specific set of structural choices that gave it its character, and that would eventually become constraints. The most important of these was the decision to draw the show directly from Cosby's stand-up material. His observations about fatherhood, about teenagers, about the particular exhaustion of raising children with a working spouse. All of it had been field-tested in front of live audiences for years before it reached NBC. The material landed because it was specific, because Cosby had genuinely lived it, and because the Huxtable family's domestic situations felt recognizable.
It was a killer. 20 questions, no multiple choice, and we couldn't even use calculators.
Rather than manufactured. The show also worked because Cosby had complete creative control, which he had insisted upon as a condition of making it. Every script was reviewed, tone was enforced. The show's warmth was not accidental, it was policed. One of the less discussed elements of the show's production was the involvement of Dr. Alvin Poussin, a Harvard psychiatrist who reviewed every episode's script for psychological accuracy and cultural appropriateness. Poussin's role was to ensure that the show's depiction of Black family life was psychologically healthy and free of stereotypes, that Cliff and Claire were not walking cliches, that the children's behavior reflected genuine developmental reality rather than sitcom convenience.
$9. I said, Rudy, I just bought you a doll. I'm not buying you another doll. Rudy had a mega fit.
When a script fell into familiar racial stereotypes or depicted behavior that Poussin felt was psychologically unrealistic for healthy, educated people, it went back to the writers. That level of intentionality set the show apart from virtually everything else on network television in the 1980s. The show also had an unusually talented ensemble at its core. Felicia Rashad brought Claire Huxtable to life with a combination of precision and warmth that made her one of the most admired sitcom characters of her era. A woman who was professional, formidable, funny, and completely convinced that her husband was slightly ridiculous, which he often was. Malcolm Jamal Warner was 13 years old when the show began.
You're buying this painting for your wife.
I'm buying the painting.
Did Dr. Huxtable say it was okay?
And played Theo Huxtable's arc from underachieving student to college graduate over 8 seasons with more consistency than the writing always deserved. Keisha Knight Pulliam, at 5 years old, managed to be charming without being saccharine, no easy thing for a child actor on a network comedy. But the structural choices that gave the show its early strength also established its ceiling. The comedy came from family dynamics, from parenting, from sibling friction, from the specific tension between parents who had built lives and children who were just beginning theirs. That was rich material for a show in its first 3 or 4 seasons. It was less rich for a show in its 7th and 8th. The whole premise depended on the children being children, on the unresolved questions of who they would become.
I'll run it again for you.
Oh, well, I can't. I have to go to Cockroach's house, and he does not like it when I'm late.
Hey, I'll drive you.
And how Cliff and Claire would shape that process. Once most of those questions were answered, once the children had grown into adults, the central comic engine had fewer places to go. The children aged. Rudy Huxtable, played by Keisha Knight Pulliam, was 5 years old in the first season and a preteen by the final years of the show. The comedy that worked for a 5-year-old, the precocious observations, the innocent misunderstandings, the particular delight of a small child interacting with adults, was not available to a 12-year-old. The youngest Huxtable, the character who had been the most reliably charming element of the show's early seasons, had simply grown out of the role that the format needed her to play. The response was to introduce Olivia Kendall in season 6.
I'm here, and you sit down here, and we're all here. Okay.
Okay.
A 3-year-old girl played by Raven Simonet, who joined the show as the step-granddaughter of Cliff Huxtable when Denise returned with a new husband and a stepchild. Raven Simonet had auditioned at age 3 and been told she was too young for the role. Cosby liked her enough that he found a part to fit her anyway. The character provided the show with a fresh source of young child comedy, and Raven Simonet, who had genuine natural talent that would sustain a decades-long career after the show ended, made the role work effectively. But the introduction of Olivia was also an admission. The original cast had aged past what the original concept needed. The show's formula had begun to need supplements. Part 3, the cracks in the foundation. Before the ratings moved, the cracks had already appeared behind the scenes, and the most visible of them involved Lisa Bonet. Bonet played Denise Huxtable, the second oldest of the 5 children, and her relationship with the show was one of its most significant production stories. She was 17 when she was cast and became one of the breakout performers of the first several seasons. Her slightly offbeat quality, her natural ease in front of a camera, her independence from the show's more conventional rhythms, all made Denise a character audiences responded to strongly. She was the Huxtable child who felt least like a television character and most like someone you might actually know. When A Different World was developed as a spin-off in 1987, spinning directly off the Cosby Show universe with Denise at a historically black college, Bonet was given the lead. The tension between Bonet's personal choices and Cosby's vision for the franchise emerged publicly in 1987.
Well, let's see. There must be something about me that you would change.
Well, let me sleep.
When Bonet appeared in the Alan Parker film Angel Heart, an R-rated thriller that included explicit sexual content with actor Mickey Rourke. She also appeared in Interview magazine in a nude cover shoot. Cosby had built The Cosby Show and A Different World on a specific image of wholesome, aspirational black family life, and Bonet's choices were incompatible with that image as he understood it. When she became pregnant with her first child by musician Lenny Kravitz, and the question of incorporating the pregnancy into the show arose, Cosby's position was reported as definitive. The character was not pregnant. Bonet left A Different World during its first season. She returned to The Cosby Show, where her character was written as having married a former military officer.
You're coming, you'll probably see flowers all over the place.
Daddy,
We should live in a hotel.
and returned to the family home with him and his young daughter, Raven Simonee's Olivia. The working relationship had not recovered from the tension, and Bonet was fired from The Cosby Show in 1991, the year before the series finale. She was not invited to appear in the series finale in 1992. Her daughter with Lenny Kravitz, Zoe Kravitz, later became one of the most accomplished young actresses working in American film, appearing in the Batman franchise and other major productions. The spin-off she left behind, A Different World, underwent a significant transformation under director and producer Debbie Allen. In its early seasons, it had been primarily a college comedy.
Come on. Your father tells me you were in the Navy.
Oh, yes.
Well, I'll try not to hold that against you.
After Bonet's departure, Allen shifted it into something more ambitious, a show that addressed HIV/AIDS, the Gulf War, the 1991 Anita Hill hearings, and the complexities of Black American professional life in ways that went well beyond what the parent show had attempted. A Different World reached as high as second in the Nielsen ratings during its run and became, by many accounts, a more culturally engaged piece of television than The Cosby Show had been in its later years. Its influence on enrollment at historically Black colleges and universities was documented by educators at the time as real and substantial. But its specific success also illustrated a shift in the cultural landscape that the original show was struggling to keep pace with. By the late 1980s and early 1990s,
You know, Denise, when I used to go to school here, my parents would come and visit me. I would clean my room up at the last minute.
audiences were looking for something with more edge than the Huxtable household could offer. Part 4, the ratings fall. The show's ratings decline is documented with precision in the Nielsen records, and the numbers tell a clean story. Season 1, third overall, rating of 24.2. Season 2, first overall, rating of 33.7. Season 3, first overall, rating of 34.9. The peak, the most watched version of the show, the season that drew more American households per week than almost anything else that decade. Season 4, first overall, 27.8. Season 5, first overall, 25.6. Season 6, first, tied with Roseanne, 23.1.
Promised Graham too that we'd all go to church together.
But I didn't promise her.
Then the break. Season 7, fifth overall, 17.1. Season 8, the final season, 18th overall, rating of 15.0. From the peak of Season 3 to the final season, the show's household rating dropped by nearly 20 full points. It went from the most watched show in America to 18th place, ranking below 60 Minutes, Roseanne, Murphy Brown, Cheers, Home Improvement, Full House, Murder, She Wrote, and several others. The audience had not abandoned the show entirely. A rating of 15.0 still represented tens of millions of households. But the era of dominance had clearly ended. The show that finally overtook The Cosby Show at the top of the ratings was Roseanne, and the connection between the two programs is more direct than it might appear.
This is only the first time I've tried to use my psychic powers. With a little practice, I bet I can get up to a C without even opening a book.
Roseanne had been developed by Matt Williams, who had written for The Cosby Show and worked extensively with its formula. It was produced by the Carsey Werner Company, the same Marcy Carsey and Tom Werner who had produced The Cosby Show. In a very real sense, Roseanne was built by people who had learned their craft on The Cosby Show, understood exactly what made it work, and then deliberately inverted its class dynamic. The Huxtables were upper-middle-class professionals in a Brooklyn brownstone. The Connors were working class in Lanford, Illinois. The Huxtables' problems were warm and manageable. The Connors' problems had financial weight and genuine friction. By the late 1980s, the specificity of The Cosby Show's comfort.
Oh, I'll tell you how she did it. She was looking at my paper. Yeah, whatever you put down, she put down the opposite.
The brownstone The professional parents, the resolved problems, the reliable warmth had begun to feel, to some viewers, like a limitation rather than a reassurance. The television landscape had changed. Animated shows like The Simpsons were presenting family comedy with an edge that the Huxtables couldn't accommodate. Roseanne was presenting family comedy rooted in genuine economic anxiety. The Cosby Show's universe had been an aspirational dream in 1985. By 1990, it felt to some audiences like a place insulated from the world as it actually was. The format's exhaustion was not only about demographics shifting beneath it, it was also about longevity. 8 seasons of a show built around a specific kind of family comedy is a long time.
Screwdriver with the big yellow handle. And give me the right one, please.
All right.
The writers had drawn deeply on the original material, on Cosby's stand-up observations, on the specific dynamics of the specific cast as originally assembled, on the domestic comedy of raising small children in a large household. By seasons 7 and 8, the original children were adults or near adults with their own storylines. The youngest original child had grown out of the comic role she had been cast to play, and the supplemental cast additions could not replicate what the original configuration had delivered. The show had done exactly what it was built to do, for longer than most shows manage it. Part 5. The Finale and What Was Left. The series finale aired April 30th, 1992. The date carried enormous external weight.
Bring him over here. Bring everything over.
The Los Angeles uprising had begun April 29th, triggered by the not guilty verdict in the trial of the police officers who had beaten Rodney King. Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley personally contacted NBC and requested the finale air as scheduled, believing that the Huxtable family's presence on television that night could provide a moment of communal stability in a city and a country in acute distress. NBC agreed. The finale drew approximately 44 million viewers, a significant audience, but far below the 62 million who had tuned in at the show's peak in season 3. The finale itself ended the series with warmth and deliberateness. Theo Huxtable graduated from New York University. Cliff and Claire celebrated with their family.
What a nice kitchen.
Thank you.
In the final scene, Cosby performed a brief, exuberant dance on the set, a piece of physical comedy that reflected the kind of unscripted joy he had always brought to the character, and then turned directly to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, and walked off the stage into the dark beyond it. The moment was unannounced and unrehearsed with the audience. It was the last thing Cliff Huxtable ever did on television. The cast, with the exception of Lisa Bonet, was present. Felicia Rashad brought the character she had played for 8 years to a close with the same grace and specificity she had brought to every episode. Malcolm Jamal Warner, who had been 13 years old when the show began and was now 21, completed an arc from struggling teenager to college graduate that was one of the more quietly accomplished character journeys the sitcom genre had produced.
Biologist that was drafted into the NBA?
Yeah, I never heard anybody say, "Thank you, biology, for my new car."
Keshia Knight Pulliam was there. Tempest Bledsoe and Sabrina LaBeouf were there. When the finale ended, the show's reputation and cultural standing were entirely intact. It had delivered what it promised across 8 seasons. The financial engine of its syndication, the $1.5 billion in reruns that would keep The Cosby Show on television screens continuously for the following 2 decades, was running smoothly. The Thursday night franchise it had built was still operating, now carrying Seinfeld and other shows into the must-see TV era that NBC would ride through the rest of the decade. What the show had built in 1984 and 1985 remained standing in 1992.
She didn't know what she wanted out of her life. Her head was all over the place.
The first collapse, the ratings decline, the creative exhaustion, the cast disruptions had been gradual, natural, and survivable. The second collapse had not yet arrived. Part 6, the second collapse. For 2 decades after the show ended, The Cosby Show remained one of the most commercially active properties in the history of American television syndication. It aired continuously on multiple channels. It generated consistent revenue. It remained culturally present in a way that very few shows ever manage after their original run ends. New generations of viewers discovered the Huxtables in reruns. The show's reputation had become fixed in American cultural memory as a defining artifact of the 1980s. One of those programs people described in shorthand.
Whenever he's around, start reading a book. He loves that. I don't know how to read. Fake it.
The way you describe a landmark. In October 2014, comedian Hanna-Barbera addressed Bill Cosby by name in a stand-up routine performed in Philadelphia, calling him a rapist and pointing to the hypocrisy of Cosby's public moralizing about moral responsibility while facing unaddressed assault allegations. A recording of the routine circulated online and went viral, spreading faster and more completely than earlier documented allegations against Cosby had ever reached, in part because social media now allowed multiple women to come forward simultaneously and be heard collectively rather than one by one. Within weeks, more than 50 women had publicly accused Cosby of sexual assault, drugging, and rape, with accounts spanning several decades.
There was no reason why those babies had to leave. So I think that they used your sickness as an excuse to take our babies.
The commercial consequences were almost immediate. On November 20th, 2014, TV Land pulled all scheduled reruns of The Cosby Show from its broadcast schedule. NBC dropped the new Cosby project it had been developing. Netflix canceled a planned stand-up special. Cosby resigned from Temple University's Board of Trustees, a position he had held for 32 years. The syndication revenue stopped. In December 2015, Cosby was criminally charged with aggravated indecent assault of Andrea Constand, a former Temple University employee who had filed a civil lawsuit against him in 2005, settled out of court, and whose sealed civil deposition from that case became the central piece of evidence when it was unsealed by a federal judge in 2015.
There's a videotape of a game that Cliff played in just last month. Is that right?
His first criminal trial ended in a hung jury in June 2017. A second trial in April 2018 resulted in a conviction on 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. He was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in a Pennsylvania state prison and began serving in September 2018. On June 30th, 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned the conviction on procedural grounds related to an earlier prosecutor's agreement not to charge Cosby criminally in exchange for his cooperation in the civil case. He was released from prison, having served more than 2 years. The show has not returned to wide broadcast or streaming availability.
I am doing my homework.
But I said, hey!
What had survived the ratings decline, the creative erosion, and the cast tensions of the late 1980s and early 1990s, the show's cultural standing, its financial life in syndication, its presence in the public memory, did not survive 2014 in the same form. Malcolm Jamal Warner, who had appeared in all 197 of the show's episodes, said before his death in July 2025 that he was still proud of what the show had been. Regardless of how some people may feel about the show now, I'm still proud of the legacy and having been a part of such an iconic show that had such a profound impact on, first and foremost, Black culture, but also American culture, he told people in 2023. The show had fallen twice. The first time, it fell the way most things fall.
If any way we could get Theo into a dorm, please give us a call. Goodbye.
Through age, competition, the exhaustion of a format, the natural limits of a premise that had been extended as far as it could reasonably go. The second time, it fell under the weight of the man whose name was on it. Both collapses were real. The first one was the kind that could happen to any show that ran long enough in a changing landscape. The second one was specific and irreversible. What the show had been, the Thursday night anchor, the cultural benchmark, the program that families across the country gathered to watch for 8 years, existed independently of what came after it. The cast, the writers, the producers, the crew, hundreds of people made that show week after week across 201 episodes.
And he's holding his raincoat over your head so you don't get wet.
Oh, this is great.
And the work they produced was real and accomplished and historically significant. None of that was undone, but the show, as a living, commercially active piece of the cultural landscape, the show that ran in syndication and that people could sit down and watch on any given evening, was gone in a way that the first collapse alone had never threatened. 8 seasons, 201 episodes, #1 for 5 consecutive years, and a story that ended in 2 entirely separate collapses, decades apart. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There is a lot more where this came from.